Good morning, Grim. Thank you.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Sarah. I see the recording has started. Good. Sarah, can we start? I think we are going to start. It's now 1 minute past 10, and I think we need to proceed. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our general meeting for the month of June. Can't believe it's almost the end of June again, and it's a good morning this morning in South Africa that we are rid of the masks, finally. I think there might be some people with mixed feelings, but for me, I'm very happy it's over and done with. So very happy about that. So let's just read our disclaimer. Recording. The meeting is being recorded for record purposes. By participating, you consent to the recording thereof. Our competition law reminder. This meeting is held with no intent to collude or engage in any matter that might contravene competition law. Any conflicts of interest are to be declared and members are asked to recuse themselves either before or during the meeting as and when they become apparent. Just to have a look at our agenda for this morning. Sarah, if you can just move one slide up. Sarah, if you can just go on to the next slide, if you can just see the agenda. Sorry. Sarah, we're just waiting for the agenda. Okay. Don't know if there we go. Thank you. So I'm going to now introduce Krim. I don't think Krim needs any introduction to our SALDA members. Krim is Krim is from CIP. He's the Director for International Studies and Strategic Partnership. And Krim will be sharing our latest GDMS South Africa stats. So we're looking forward to your presentation, Krim. Yeah. So we can ask the members during the presentation. You're welcome to, in the chat box, write your questions for Krim, and then afterwards Krim will address everybody's questions accordingly. So Krim, I'm going to hand over to you, for you to share your presentation. And yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Let me share my presentation, and here it is. 1, 2, 3 seconds, and it should be that one. Yes. Do you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
So let's. That's okay. Thank you. So let me just maybe switch off the camera to facilitate. Okay. This morning, we will present with Gilles, our data manager, the latest data we collected for South Africa. For information, the GDMS, as you know, is a global and common market data shared by all the countries, not only South Africa. And for the time being, we are actually releasing most of the data in different countries. So you are not late, I would say, because again, as you know, we have almost 85 companies participating in different countries in total. So depending on the last data submission, and sometimes we will be late. So today, if you agree, I would like just to update you on what we call the latest exchanges or changes made by Market Research Committee. Then I will walk you through the data, the 21 data with some, I will explain to you some reason why you have also to wait until maybe next week or in the coming 2 weeks. The data collection for 22. And also I will conclude my presentation by some interesting information. Maybe we can discuss it in the future because it's actually what is currently discussed by the different medtech organizations in different countries, and I will explain that to you. Is that okay for you?
100%, Grim. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you very much. So the first, I mean, as you know, the GDMS stands for Global Diagnostic Manufacturer Statistics. It is currently performed on behalf of the market research committees, IVD market research committees in different countries, including SALDA. And again, what we do, we collect the data. We're a trusted third party. We're also a non-profit organization. We collect the data. We do all the sanity checks of the data. We crunch the data and we deliver and release reports. And all the cells, as you will see it in a few minutes, actually based on what we call the ex-manufacturer cells are provided by you. There is no extrapolated cells. There is no panel. It's really what is submitted by all the companies participating. This is mutualization of the data. And in the case of South Africa, is actually submitted in local currency, the rands. And there is a common classification. That's what's very important, because if you are global, especially for those who have headquarters in different countries, it's important to know that the data is consolidated at the level of the headquarter using the GIVD classification, which means global IVD classification, and it is updated once a year by a committee, and that's very important. It's harmonized and really up to date, and you will see it. So the first news about SALDA, as you know, most of the companies are reporting globally. I mean, from Abbott to Thermo Fisher. And for the time being, Gilles is collecting the data from company by company, globally speaking, meaning that, sorry to say that, if one global company is late for all the countries, South Africa, unfortunately, will be impacted. So this is the reason why sometimes when we see the data is not the data by country, is the data for all the countries from the global companies. But good news, there is a new entrant, which is QIAGEN. So QIAGEN for Germany actually provide the data for South Africa. So slowly we're trying to get all the back data with them. But for the time being, QIAGEN is a new entrant, meaning that we have today 15 companies participating to the market data for South Africa. There is also some news because globally, at the global level, Sysmex is going maybe to leave not the statistics, but maybe we are going direct maybe with you, Sysmex, and Sarah. Maybe we have to discuss that in the coming weeks or months to see if it's possible that Sysmex South Africa to report directly to us and not from Germany. But we'll talk about it. This is something which is, there's an ongoing discussion between Sysmex and the Market Research Committee at MedTech Europe, but let's see. And finally, just for information, the data you are going to get in a few, the presentation today, but in the coming weeks, to let you know that IEC Amersham, unfortunately, we didn't get the data on time. And we hope that we'll be able to get the data soon because we are still duplicating the data since 2019 for information. And there is a discussion at the moment. And Sarah, just update us when you have news from them. But anyway, this is the latest information about the participating companies. Any question about that, or is that okay? Yeah, okay. Well, now the other update, back to what because we met a few months ago with the committee of the classification. So it's important to know that the updated classification considers and takes into account the latest information about the COVID, and in the result you are going to get, the results actually are already updated in the database. So if you have any question about that, there is a new reporting, there are new reporting guidelines issued by the association, and if you need them, we can send it to you. So just to let you know that. So no major changes in the classification. They actually did a review of some parameters, especially in hematology, if I'm right, and in genetic testing, but no major changes. So I would say that compared to the one we used for the previous results and this new one, except maybe the adaptation or the allocation of the COVID testing, no changes, no major changes in the classification. So that's okay. Now about the 21 data. So let's go. No, I don't need Excel file because I did. So this is the latest table, so you can see it. So we are making the comparison between Q4, I mean 21 and 2020. In that case, we decided to add two rows. The first one is called total IVD market, and the other one is the total IVD market excluding the coronavirus testing. And there are some reasons behind, because it's exactly the same approach all the association has. The reason is because we would like to track over the years and in the past and the future, the impact, because that's important. In that case, as you can see it here, highlighted in yellow, with and without, and meaning that the trend will be, I mean, it's really growing in terms of market without the COVID, because we are moving to almost 11% of growth. This is a growth for the total IVD market. And regarding the reagents, we are more or less in the same, with the same trend, 10%. So the impact of the COVID, obviously, we can talk about it, we can discuss it and again. But what's very important in when we discuss with the other companies, especially the data committee they have internally, the trend is actually positive in most of the countries. So we cannot tell you at the moment because we release the data within the last 4 weeks, so it's still under analysis by the different companies and associations. But when we have a meeting with them, let's get the feedback. But apparently there are some obvious drivers in the growth in different markets. But I cannot share this with you today because I would say we don't know for South Africa at the moment. It's the result. We work on the result until yesterday evening. So let's get your feedback, and we can set up another call if you want in the coming weeks or later on to discuss and to investigate about the drivers of what actually is making the growth. Regarding the, let's move to the other slide. So regarding the breakdown in the laboratory markets, as you can see it here. So the immunochemistry is the major part as it is today, but it's also the case in other countries, not only in South Africa. Recently, we had a meeting with the Canadian and also with Germany and Germany and I think UK or France. So we are observing exactly the same trend. The fact is, we have some, I would say, some questions, but when we look into the data for the, if I'm right, the clinical chemistry, because the clinical chemistry in some countries, the growth is more, I would say, is a little bit, is flat, whereas in other countries like South Africa, there is a growth. So maybe you have some explanation on that. The micro is more or less the same, with the same situation as it was in the previous years. And the last one is the genetic testing, which is in the next slide. Actually, the genetic testing in South Africa is very less than 1%. That's why you have this in orange. However, the growth and the market, the breakdown by the market is mostly, as you can see it here, of course, in infectious immunology for South Africa. It could be a little bit different in other countries, but we can discuss this in the future. And that information will be available in the coming weeks. The reason is because, as you know, we are waiting updates from two companies. I would say that won't change dramatically the data, but we would like to deliver to you the most accurate data for some parameters. So what you have on the screen and the data you are going to receive from Gilles will be with the up-to-date data in the database. And in the future, what we can do, company by company, if you want, and especially back to my previous slide, here it is, we can set up meetings individually if you want, and we can walk you through your own data. I think it would be beneficial to some of you to have the presentation of the GDMS individually, because when we talk to your headquarters, especially for the ones who are global, we have some information we can discuss, and sometimes we have questions from the local users. So please keep in mind that once the data will be available, delivered to you, please do not hesitate to contact us and we can set up a meeting with you. Okay. Is that okay?
Thank you, Krim. Yes, yes. I just want to actually jump in here and just again reiterate and ask the members to participate in the survey and to send the data, because it is really it is very relevant for our industry, and it really just assists. The more companies that we have that participate in the survey, the more data we have to work with. So we really encourage it from our side as well.
Yeah, so you're totally right. And the other information, and coming to the next slide, which is the food for thought, as I said, I mean, we talk about it. Actually, the discussion we have with your counterpart, I mean, not only the association, but also the companies and the members, is how we can use differently the data we have today. So there is a project which is we're working on it at the moment. It will be completed, I hope, by the end of the year. We are expanding the how can say the coverage of the data, not in terms of market, because we cover more or less, say 80% of the market with the data we collect from you, but the idea is, can we go beyond the data and getting insights? So, because based on the experience we have with other market data, we work with other industries, including the animal health in South Africa. We work with other industries, the human pharma and the medical device. Obviously, we can enrich the data and try to to draw some lines and some trends for the future. And this is actually the discussion we have with the association of the members. But in order to support such a development or such a, I would say, direction, we need to convince more companies to join. And actually, this is what in the strategic plan, I would say, let's call it strategic plan, but the ambition of some committees, especially the market data committee within some association, is to talk to the members and to some companies. And this is the case today in Portugal, in France, in the UK, in Italy, in Spain too, to have more companies participating, especially maybe this is the case for you in South Africa, what we call the low-cost companies in the IVD. This is the case in Poland. So maybe in the future you will see among the members or the participating members, companies coming from maybe some niche market or some very specific market, which is already the case in some countries. So let's open the door, but for sure, we are today implementing more performing tools, more capabilities to crunch the data, and this is our role. However, we are listening to you, and this is also why, as you said, you're right. It's important that among your members, especially the ones you know, outside the SALDA association, because they are not SALDA, we can welcome them. I mean, as provider, we can collect the data and work on the data to make the data as qualitative as possible. Okay, so now let's talk about the 22 data collection, which is ongoing, because we already started to collect the data from the same companies. So we, for the existing participant, we are collecting the data Q1 and Q2 data, meaning normally by the end of July, we'll be able to get all the data collected. And for the new participant, because we will have some new participant, I hope, fingers crossed, maybe not for the first semester, maybe by the end of the year. In that case, they have to report at least 9 quarters of data. So, the process is still the same, meaning that you have to report, and they report at the most granular level, which is the level 4 of the classification, the parameter level. We still have the same process in place, meaning that we collect the data individually, company by company. We consolidate the data. We do all the sanity checks. In the case of South Africa, the data is provided to us. It's provided to us in rands when it's possible. Otherwise, sometimes we have the data either in euro or in US dollar, and then it is converted into rand. And if you have any question about that, especially I'm talking to the individual companies, if you have any question about how the data is managed, especially in terms of exchange rate, please reach out to us and to Gilles, and we can discuss it on an individual basis. But the data is actually processed in rand, in local currency. And finally, no changes. we're sticking to the specification of the GDMS, meaning that we collect the gross sales or the turnover, we calculate the trend, the market share, and the ranking on quarterly basis, moving annual total year to date. So we do not have any volumes or units for information because we had a question from some companies who were actually looking into the data for South Africa. There is one company, maybe we can talk about it in the future, which is based in Germany, Human, maybe you know the company. And Human actually is interested in joining the South Africa data, but I will let you know that because it was just a presentation a few weeks ago, because they are joining the European GDMS in some countries. And sorry, they would like to join the GDMS in some countries in Europe. So that's why. And South Africa is among the countries they would like to get in outside Europe. Human and the confidentiality. So now this is about the data for South Africa, the food for thought, and I'm sharing this with you because I think it's important to know what we are doing with other companies and also what is where we stand with some reflection about the data. As I say, there is a discussion about how we can enrich and maybe look into the data, not in terms of only trend, but forecast. So we started working with some companies and discuss. We had some interviews with some of them. I can tell you, for example, with Roche, with bioMérieux, with Abbott. And there was a question asking to CIP, would it be possible to consider that maybe in the future we'd like to get additional information, not only the data we have, the sales data we have in some countries, but also to go beyond. And we propose to them, of course, in terms of forecasting, we have 5 possibilities, and I'm just focusing on the 3 first because the 2 other possibilities are a little bit more complicated because it's what we call the long-term forecasting up to 10 years, but we don't have enough data in the database to do that. So in terms of possibilities, we can of course go, we can move forward with a regular forecast, which is actually calculated based on what you have in the database. I mean, your cells. Maybe for South Africa, maybe up to 4 or 5 cells, historical data in the database. Then we can move to step number 2, meaning that we connect the data we have for South Africa and for other countries to what we call the open data or open source data by crunching and combining data from other sources. I will give you some explanation. And then we can move to level number 3, which is the detection or trying to understand if there is a correlation between some drivers or indicators or the environment and the data, the sales data for the reagents in South Africa and other countries. So please keep in mind that correlation is not causation. So the causality is something else, but anyway. So by doing that, in the first case, the first and obvious, I would say, if I may say that, is to calculate a forecast. It could be a 3-year forecast, maybe a 2 or 3 year forecast, which is enough to start with. We can use different technical approach, statistical techniques like the Box and Jenkins, the regression, but I will leave it to you. It's something we can discuss in the future. But the idea here is just to make sure that with the data we have, we can envision what could be the trend, not only the one we have by calculating, for example, a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate, but maybe going beyond and with a 2 or 3 year forecast to see, for example, not the coronavirus, of course, testing, but in hematology or in genetic testing or or microbiology, maybe some parameters are very relevant to you. What could be the trend based on the data we have? So that's maybe the first and obvious thing we can do. And this is the kind of possibilities we're discussing today with some companies. But you can do it by yourself if you want internally within the company. It's not a big problem. It's not a big need to do it. The second one is that one, which is a little bit more complex, is by using the data we have. By using the data we have, we connect the data to the external databases like the OECD, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, even local databases, public sources. For example, in South Africa, you have a very interesting data bank in South Africa with health economics, from health economics and KPIs in health economics that will be possible. Also, the idea behind is just to take the data we have, the sales data, the one you have for GDMS, and to look into that databases and to calculate or to try to find the correlation between, let's say, for example, the aging population, the level of distribution, the GDP, the usual, I mean, indicators we can use in other statistics. So, and by doing that, we can maybe we can find out that the correlation between, let's say, the age of the population, the trend in the consumption of some product, the environment, the everything we can imagine. We are currently doing it for the animal health. And of course, we can correlate the vaccines for the poultry or the ruminants with the crops, the level of production of the crops and the GDP and the level of animal population in some countries. So we can do different things, but the idea here is to find first, to correlate the information, to find the relevant drivers, and from there to forecast both the data and the drivers. And then, of course, we can have some insight indication of the behavior, of how the things will move forward in the future. And finally, the last one, which is the calculation of the correlation, the causality. In here is about the causality, because as I said, correlation is not causation. But what is actually the impact of one or another driver? And in that case, by finding the real impact of some drivers, then we can also go what we call to the explanation of the trend and even in the forecast in the future. And that part is a little bit more complex, but very interesting. And from there, we can build what we call the what-if scenarios. And the what-if scenarios are nothing else than the simulation. So if tomorrow, yes, the cursor, if you see, for example, if the population is growing, if the reimbursement is going to impact, if the regulatory is going to impact, which is more qualitative information, if, let's say, there is a new entrant in the market, like a disruption, a digital one, for example, and if we can quantify that, maybe you can perform some what-if scenarios. So this is just for your, it's what we call the food for thought for you, but just to let you know that what we are discussing at the moment with some companies, because we would like, they would like to enrich the data, especially the GDMS data, for getting more insight in the future. So I'm stopping here because it's, we can discuss about it hours and hours, but this is the presentation of today. So please, if you have any question, I would be pleased to answer to questions.
Thank you very much.
Back to you.
I will now open the floor for any questions. I'm just quickly going to the chat box. I don't see any questions under the chat. I'll open up to the floor if anybody has a question. Thomas, you've got a question?
Yeah, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas from Beckman Coulter.
Yeah.
I just want to know the interpretation of the lab market, if that is equivalent to what the diagnostic companies are saving as a service that they can provide to laboratories, or if the total lab market is what we see as laboratory, for example, NHLS, MPES, and all the private laboratory markets. I just want to know more or less what is equivalent to a lab market. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I got a question, but unfortunately, I cannot answer it directly because we don't have this information. Maybe if we, okay, Gilles, can you please just put a note because I don't have, and if we can send the answer to Sarah. Sarah can send you the answer because I have to, from on our end, we receive the data, we have the classification, but what's behind is not always obvious to us. But okay, I got your question. Okay, I see. Thank you. That was for, sorry.
Thank you, Chris. Thomas, any other questions? I don't see anyone's hands or any questions in the chat box. But if there is other questions that maybe might arise after the meeting, you're more than welcome to send Sarah an email with all your questions, and we will forward it on to Krim. and Krim can then reply. Again, thank you very much, Krim, for the presentation. Much appreciated.
And the data will be available normally because the company confirmed yesterday that we get the data next week. The remaining updates we need to finalize the processing. We already have the data, so normally end of next week you should get the report, and from there please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will set up individual meetings to go through the data to show you what kind of information you can get from the GTMS.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Krim. I see Sarah's hand is up.
Sarah.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Krim. Thanks, Tanya. So I will be sharing this presentation as well with all the members on email later today.
I will send it to
Krim.
you, Sarah, because I added the graphs.
Okay.
Okay,
great.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. You. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thank you, Krim. Much appreciated.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, so we are running a bit ahead of schedule. I know our IQVIA team will only join, I think, a little bit later. Do we take a short recess?
I think we can take a short recess. I have put a poll in the chat. Please, can everyone give us their feedback as well, whether they found the CIP presentation useful or not? And yes, agree, Tanya, we'll take a short break. Leave it up to you. How long?
I think we can take about a 10-minute break. I just want to, while we've got everybody online, I just want to encourage everybody. We are very excited. SALDA has turned 21 years old this year, and we would like to celebrate that. And I must say our celebration comes at a good time with all the masks and indoor events opening up. So we have decided to have a general meeting in August, and we are planning a face-to-face meeting. It will be our first one in a couple of years, I think, Sarah, and I'm quite excited about it. We are looking for a venue that will be central, and we would like to celebrate with our members. So please keep that in the back of your minds. We will share the invitation as soon as we have everything finalized, but it will be in August, and we would like to see as many of our members that we can celebrate together. We are looking at some very interesting speakers. So yes, please keep an eye out in your email box for the invitation that Sarah will send in due course. So it is now 10:33. I think let's take a break and reconvene at, Sarah, shall we say 10:45?
That's perfect. Thanks, Tanya. Yes.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 10:45. Thank you very much, everyone. See you at 10:45.